Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Starbase friends around the world. Astro Joe here for RGV Aerial Photography, Starbase Weekly, episode 120. Got some great pictures taken in great weather about 10 o'clock yesterday morning on the 14th. Going to have a great show for you. I'll send it on over to your host, Stephanie.
G'day from Australia. Welcome all around the world. Welcome to a new flyover. Today I've got a couple of guests with me. We've got Lawrence. How you going, Lawrence?
I'm doing good and looking forward to seeing these great photos today.
And we've got Todd. G'day, Todd.
Hello, Stephanie. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be back. These pictures are some amazing pictures, as some of you've seen in the preview before the show. It's going to be some awesome pictures. I can't wait to get into it.
Okay, and with that, let's jump over to Massey's. Have a look at a distance shot here, and we'll start where we normally start, down over at the flame trench. Let's start with this particular image, which is a really good image, straight down the flame trench. Really, really amazing. I'll let Todd start on the flame trench.
Yeah, Mauricio was able to get in there with some really close lights, probably closer than we've been. I don't think we've seen, I know we haven't seen this view and a lot of other ones. So looking down at the flame trench, a lot of the questions have been asked about how are they going to get the water out. And as we zoom in on the lines down there, I think SpaceX is still working on it because there's water in there still. Well, whether it was from the rain or from the static fire, we don't know. But there's definitely still some water in there right now.
Absolutely. Now, I think this is a safety device for a human safety line. This photo shows lots of details, like the bolt details of how they bolt the ship stand, the static fire stand down. Some really nice detail of the rails and how they mount. And this new box over here, some kind of hydraulics that we're guessing is something to do with that platform being slid across.
Yeah, it's going to definitely take some force to get that platform across. We were looking closely at a lot of the things down there to see how it might work. It definitely does look like a hydraulic motor. You can see the reservoir in one of the pictures. We weren't able to see any rams or gears or anything that tells us exactly for sure how it works, but I'd go with definitely something to open and close that.
Agreed.
Okay, so it looks like the static fire stand well and truly survived the static fire. It's not much to report on this week, except just we could see all this new detail with these amazing photos with the good weather. We hadn't been able to see a lot of this detail in the past. So it's really nice photography. I still can't
Yeah,
quite see the mechanism. I'll go on.
I was going to say one thing, a lot of people worried about how well it fared. And looking at the wall in that picture, you can see it's pretty rough. From how I know slurry walls work, that's not, that might not possibly be all damaged. Slurry walls use the dirt as a foundation wall. So when they take that dirt away, you have a rough finish. So even though that looks really beat up right there, that might not be from the static fire, but it's hard to tell. And some of the earlier pictures we saw from the other angle, the lower end by the ramp, they were rough too. So I'm pretty sure that the overall flame trip handled really well.
I have to agree with that. So otherwise, that part of the tank, that part of the Massey's, I seem to be doing a little bit of work again, just done perhaps some little fine-tuning bits and pieces here and there, but still no massive construction. I'll just go over to the heat exchangers. They still haven't plumbed in that last heat exchanger. I guess we'll see that in the near future.
Yeah, I definitely.
Go on.
I'm not seeing a lot of construction as well. I think the fact that it's still so clean this far since the static fire shows a lot that how SpaceX works. If there was a problem, if something had happened, it would be torn up, torn out, and being rebuilt already. And the whole site still looks pretty dang clean for Massey's.
Agreed. Now, we did see ship 26. Instead of transporting the static fire stand back to Mega Bay 2, which is a bit busy at the moment. We'll cross that later when we get there. A bit busy with internal install work and concrete work outside the door. So instead, they brought the stand with the ship on it over to the crane, and they lifted it up with the big crane here and lifted it on a transport stand here at Massey's, and leaving the static fire stand here for now, which was not their original plan, but I guess just because High Bay 2 is a bit busy at the moment, they elected to go that way.
Detroit Mission Control asking if the slurry wall in the flame trench is showing water seepage.
Seepage? No, I don't think so.
Slurry walls by design are a waterproof membrane. Seepage would show signs of a crack, or if they were to have bolted side bolts to stabilize the wall into the dirt, you might see some there. But by design, they shouldn't be leaking. So I don't see any myself, and that's a good thing.
And remembering they did all this soil stabilization work around the outside here, bigger than the flame trench itself, which also restricts water movement into the flame trench area.
That is correct.
Okay. What do you think, Darth? Are you there?
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. And yeah, I mean, in one of the previous flyovers, it looked like the walls might have gotten wet, but I don't know if that was from a deluge test or if it was just rain.
Agreed. Cool. Okie dokie. Let's move on to the LOX tanks. Well, hang on a minute. So we can... Whoa, hang on. That's an old image. This is an old image, sorry. We were just discussing this ring. Just hang on a second. This one will do. I've got the pile caps are going ahead with the new footings for the new 2 new LOX tanks. So there should be a total of 4 LOX tanks here once they finish all this construction.
I believe my belief is that the new LOX tank that was delivered that we'll see later in Sanchez is the one going here. We'll know soon because it won't be long till they're ready to place it if this is the location. I always kind of wondered about this empty area, and it just didn't seem right to me. What could they use that area for? But I think they found a good use for it.
Agreed.
It kind of looks like they planned all the way along, doesn't it, that they were going to put more LOX tanks in this particular area. I mean, they have been using it for construction up and on for all the different construction bits and pieces, but yeah, for now it does look like it was already planned to be this way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you there, Steph.
I mean, they could have ran these pipes just straight across here. Okay, moving on. Booster 14.1. It underwent some testing on the load point pins, and they've since removed the cap. Oh, we can just see that ram there. I'll go back to that in a second. So booster 14 had the cap put on top, and these rams here were bolted onto the booster cap, onto the can crusher cap, and they bolted on this face up onto the cap, and these angle bits were just for lifting it. And on this left-hand one, that little ram I was looking at on the cap was applying side load as well. So I applied vertical force plus some side load on this one. And if we look closely, and some ground photos, I think, from some people showed it well, there are sensors all over this thing. You can see a harness of them here and a heap of them here up on top, and all wired down to, I'm not sure what that unit is up there. I didn't actually get a good answer on show and tell what that box up there would be. There's another box down here that has something to do with communications and testing electronics as well. Since last week, they've taken this temporary line away that was giving the booster some pressure, and it appears this part of the testing gas will stay permanent. So in the future, we may see more testing of some sort over in this area.
Yeah, this really reminds me of what they did with the hot staging rigs test article right before Flight 2. So now that they're talking about possibly doing the landing attempt for Flight 5, I think these tests make sense because it looks like they were testing the lifting points on this test article.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely how it worked out with the hot stage ring, and here they are doing this gives me great hope for catching in the next one, or at least getting a really close attempt at it. Steph, that box on top of 24.1, I believe that's a data logger. I think it looks like there's quite a bit of wires around it. I think a lot of those sensors from the upper area feed into that, and that is recording. Whether it's sending out information, I don't know, but I believe that's where everything gets data logged.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The mechanism for the grid fins are here, some of the mechanism. So this is the cap that used to be on the can crusher. This is the little extra framework they added on to create a little bit of side force there on that far pin up there. So it looks like they're finished with that. I don't believe this particular article, I didn't think this particular article had any more testing to do, but as one of our members, Jake, pointed out, that this article has this little bit of plumbing here which wasn't used in the last test. So perhaps this article has more testing to come yet. I'm not sure what that was about. Okay, I'll move on to the new test stand.
Real quick, a question from Flipper79, Flip Diaz. By the static fire stand, what's that lone tank in a corner?
Are we talking about this?
Well, the context is by the static fire stand, what's that lone tank in a corner?
Let me have a quick look. We might need some verification on that. I mean, that's a hydraulic system. Not sure what this is. This is some kind of commodities. Let me just have a quick look at the stand. There was nothing actually near the stand, so they must mean over there. I'm not sure what they're referring to. This is some kind of hydraulic system, and this is just a bit of temporary commodities gas. I'm not sure what they're using it for today. Any ideas on what that is, Darth?
Most likely argon if they're doing any welding.
Agreed.
And the ever persistent question, do they plan on performing static fires on boosters here? If so, where?
No. There's no infrastructure here for a booster static fire. The GSC is far more complicated to start a booster, which may even change in the near future with the new stand, with the new OLM. No, there's no real room. There's no room here. And this is definitely never going to be big enough for a booster. Besides, in my opinion, the OLMs are the perfect place to do a static fire for a new booster. Gets put on the OLM, quick static fire, fully stacked, fly. A static fire on the OLMs is not really going to hold up launch cadence because I can imagine a booster's second flight may not even need a static fire.
And I can honestly say, I believe in the future what we'll see actually are like kind of what they do with the Falcon Heavies is where, or other rockets where they'll do the static fire and the booster doesn't even leave the pad.
Yeah, you also got to remember the part of static firing boosters, it's not all about the booster. The OLM starts out those outer ring of engines, so that's testing for the OLM as well. They need to make sure that those are going to spin up right. They need to make sure that everything lights right. It's not just making sure the booster engines turn on, it's making sure that everything else is working with it. And doing it here, they still need to do that step at some point, just as they get going.
Agreed. Okay, no more questions on that. We'll continue on. This is going to raise some questions. Now we've got the third level of the new test stand up on top, and there are parts for the next level for the circle and also for the legs right here. And the legs appear that there's going to be something on top yet again. So either another ring or some kind of termination or some kind of mounting device for the actual cap, because we're pretty sure the cap is going to be used as part of this test structure. We've seen different pieces added on like these to add twist forces, and there's some other ones here to add some other types of forces, as well as the 20 lugs around the side to actually do the crushing part of the crusher cap's original job. So this is going to be quite a multifunctional test rig. And it was interesting to actually use that cap for that test on the pins, but it made a lot of sense once we saw that actually happen. So looking in here, the plumbing seems to be still continuing. I think there may just be some flex lines down here that will actually attach to whichever test article they're using in here. There's nothing to say this test rig can't be used for ship sections as well as booster sections. It seems to be set up mostly for boosters. Now, just going on booster, here's a hot bit of news here. It appears this is something to do with a test puck chuck tester, and it has 5 center positions, which is giving us the thought that this is the 35 engine booster, the center 10 and center 5 engines for the 35 engine booster. And we had Ryan and Jax in our show and tell which was really awesome. And Ryan worked out there's not quite enough clearance in here for the two bells, but with a little tiny bit of moving of the engines around a tiny bit, this will work. We don't believe that these rams have to be perfectly vertical, so they could be slightly angled to suit. And I'll just give you a render of what Ryan came up with for the engines. Actually, on the spot, he did this literally within 5 minutes of seeing that article, which was amazing. And on Twitter today, or X, Ryan released this render as well.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing to see what he came up with on the fly after seeing that piece.
Yeah, we've definitely got some amazing 3D artists in the community. I think some of us were still trying to figure out what it was, and he was already working on the picture, and it was just great to have that as we were going to explain things, because I can't visualize some of that stuff like he can, and it's great to have a picture while we were trying to talk about it. That was really awesome.
Absolutely. So that little circle honeycomb should fit neatly inside here. And we're wondering what they're going to do with concrete down here. So they looks like they're going to have that honeycomb section sit inside this ring elevated. So you should be able to walk under that. And there's Nelson studs or starter bars on both this ring and that ring. So that'll all be concreted inside there. And it still doesn't leave. We've also seen a new piece of steel in here, which I think is to marry up the booster base. It doesn't leave a lot of room for rams, so there may be different ways to do the ram testing if in fact that honeycomb sits up at this level, which it does appear to be because of all the starter bars and that in here. And we think... Go on.
I'm still shocked that this thing is still going up. The next level shows that there's another ring coming, and I thought they would be topping out soon, but it just keeps on getting taller. I'm still scratching my head at all the uses they could use this for. It's going to be pretty cool to watch.
I think with the stretched versions of ships they keep talking about, they're wanting a taller test structure, so they can test like halves, like the thrust sections or the payload sections of ships.
Yeah, makes sense.
And boosters as well. For now, it appears primarily for a booster and perhaps very much can test ships as well. Obviously won't do a nose cone with the can crusher cap, but I mean, I still have the jail here, which was painted, and you would think if this was getting decommissioned that it would have been disassembled already by now, but it's still here, so I think there's still use for the jail as well. Not a very nice name for that, but that's what it is. You know what this reminds me of? In Stargate, how they go from the ship down to the planet with those rings that go click, 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 click down and click, click, click back up again.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was a perfect explanation of it, Steph. I agree.
So it's actually a Stargate. So down here, we think they'll be able to get underneath here because there appears to be boxes underneath here that need access. So there's a good chance this will be accessible underneath all this concrete up here. Okay, Joe, can we go through some donations, please, and some final questions?
Definitely. I want to thank Ironclad for a $9.99 super chat before the stream started, as well as Flippers79, Flip Diaz gifting a membership, as well as Yap Kuipers gifting a membership, Atomizer becoming an RGV flight supporter, and Kenny Crow becoming an RGV flight supporter, all before the stream started. Brian Murphy would like to know how on earth would they even get a booster into that test structure?
That's a good question. With a tall crane, because, yeah, by the time you add the next leg up here and whatever on top again, and then plus, of course, you have to lift the booster twice that high to get up the top of the booster. I imagine the LR 11,000 from the launch site, perhaps. I doubt this crane's quite tall enough. I think this crane's just here for construction. Pretty sure the LR 11,000 will be tall enough to do the job. What do you think, Darth?
Yeah, I think it would be. I don't think we'll ever see a full booster get tested in here, but I do believe the LR 11,000 will be making a trip once all the remodeling at the launch complex is done.
Yeah, if not that one, I'm pretty sure they're going to be another one because they will have need for one to be doing it that's taller than this one. We know this one is strong enough to lift ships because we just watched that happen. I don't know though if it can be extended any higher and still have the same lifting capabilities. That's not a question for me. Well, we can dig into that one, but I think something bigger is definitely going to show up here after the construction's done.
Agreed.
And I think that addresses Crane Man's question that just came in. How high is the test stand going to be compared to the OLM? Could they bring in the LR 11,000 from the launch site to fit a booster inside?
Absolutely. I think Darth hit on a note there. It'll be more than likely just the oxygen tank or perhaps just the top half of a booster. I doubt they'll have a full booster in here. I think mostly, by the looks of it, they're mostly going to be testing new technology with, new iterations with the 35 engine booster. And perhaps the methane section might get a can crusher test as well.
That's about all the questions I got relevant to Massey's here. Saving up a couple that were for different portions of the show. So that's all I got here.
Okay, Todd or Darth, any extra to add? A bit more concrete, I think. Any more to add to Massey's?
Yeah, at this point, they're just probably going to put in those couple of more tanks, and we're going to pretty soon see some Block 2 testing really start.
Going back to Crane Man's question, how tall is it going to be? Well, I don't think we're going to know. Maybe next week we'll start seeing some capping off pieces, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, we won't know for sure until we see the pieces. And as far as the crane question, I was going to ask you those questions, so I'll send you a DM later, buddy.
I really want to thank Methane Man for gifting 10 memberships. That is amazing support, helping keep RGV in the air. Appreciate you.
Okay, we're going to move to Sanchez. Emily, I'm just going to keep quiet for 1 second. Thank you, Alan. Go ahead, Darth.
Yeah, I was just commenting on how awesome these photos are, and it's been a while since the RGV team has been able to get these clear shots.
Yeah, I agree. The weather really cooperated this week. I was glad to see that, especially with the good pictures we got in Massey's. It was just everything was a perfect storm for perfect pictures.
Absolutely. They want to know when Joe's going to go on a flyover. Okay, moving on to Sanchez. This area looks fairly clean. There's a little bit of work going on here, some plumbing, a little bit of plumbing. We think a LOX pipe here for the launch site. We'll get to that at the launch site, what that could be in aid of. And a little bit more plumbing over here seems to have been worked on. There's a little tent inside the tent. I guess we think for welding. Doesn't seem to be a lot of activity just yet. We're expecting a lot of activity for the tower sections. There's still a lot of stuff staged. So there's two there's two trains of thought here, whether this GC building is going to be dedicated to the ground support equipment for the next launch site, and the towers sections are going to be, or the plumbing seems to be getting done in tents out here. So for now, it looks like the GC area is still going to be just used for GC at the new OLM.
Yeah, it's interesting because we haven't been able to see inside that building to actually know what is going on. We know they've been working on some of the plumbing in that building, but we also know that previously, I believe, we've seen larger things be done there.
Yeah, so we're pretty sure there's no actual OLM in here yet. That's always the question, is there an OLM in here?
Yet.
Yeah.
Going back to that tent in the tent, Steph, that's basically for environmental control for welding. Having that big opening on one end, if you get a gust of wind in there when you're welding on something and it blows away your argon, your shielding gas, it can make for a bad day for a welder. You want to, even though it's not like airproof, it's not, totally sealed, just stopping the breeze coming in is a big difference when you're doing precision welding.
Okay, very good. Agreed. Okay, moving over to this little area. I'll get a better photo of that. This one will do for now. The third transport stand still seems to be getting worked on, although very, very slowly moving ahead. Here we go. And now last week we saw these 10 items further over behind the big white tent. It seems to be they moved over here with these 10 items, which remember that they were building that 10-sided like spider web with the two circles. It appears to be similar items, so they've taken these bases out and they've brought these bases in, so perhaps a similar thing but just slightly different is going to be built in here as well.
I'd agree.
Yeah, it feels like this is mainly the area for making stuff that's for the jigs and the workstations in Star Factory. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this oddball shape, a little bit different than the last one, a little bit different than the one before that. I think we're going to see quite a few more until they get the entire factory up and running.
Agreed. These rectangles, there's two of them now. And I think this is the second one of these we've seen as well, this frame. Not sure if they're related or if these are platforms that go between them, but it doesn't look like they fit in it, so not sure what's going on there. And it appears to be parts for another one of these stands here as well.
Yeah, and with the layout of Star Factory, it would make sense that they have those types of work platforms where they can just lower rings over them.
Now I can try and find that photo. Correct. This has fold out platforms. And then we look at the size of the transport stand here. It appears to be small enough to fit inside a barrel section with these outer platforms that are curved. Let's try and find that photo. I thought it was one of these distance photos, but I can't seem to find it. Yeah, here we go, this one. Here it is. So we see these curved sections here, and these, you can see here, these are a platform that folds down. And one over there as well, and these curved sections here. So it indicates this goes inside a ring section. So perhaps in that taller part of the factory where they can actually got height to lift whatever section over the top of this Unless it's maybe going in a mega bay, but I can't see that. It's probably inside the factory.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty sure, I would bet money that that's something for the factory, just because that just seems to be the factory area right there.
Yes, yep. Except for the transport stands. But yeah, a lot of jigs and so forth are being built in this area. So just quickly on this horizontal directional boring they had going on here, it seems to be complete. I did a horizontal boring from here across to here. Not sure what it was for, but there it is, complete. So these look like those rings they put on the test stand at Massey's. But I think that we also saw them as part of the booster caps. It can be tricky tracking all the different bits and pieces.
Yeah, very
Okay,
common.
onto the tower sections. They're still staging bits and pieces around. They don't seem to be in a hurry just right now to fit out all these sections. There's a lot of plumbing already installed, a lot of staircases and a lot of stuff already installed. There's talk this time around perhaps a lot of the equipment that was on tower section 1 may go into the base this time rather than up on the tower itself. So we may not see a lot of stuff on this section. And the other sections that have a lot of stuff is section 4 and 5, where the SQD area is attachment area. There seems to be a lot of equipment up on the tower in that area. So we'll expect to see some work there. But there still should be, like all these pipes and so on, all these will be installed, I would say, before they move over to the launch site.
Yeah, I can say that within the next week or so, those 3 segments right there are going to start getting a lot of attention. We already know that segment 4 is being shipped almost complete with all the cryo plumbing for the SQD arm, the hydraulic accumulators already installed. So it looks like sections 4 and 5 are being shipped pretty much ready to stack compared to these.
Yeah, I believe they even put the staircases that they put on these ones here at the yard. I believe they put the staircases in those 2 pieces already. So yeah, I agree. They're coming much more loaded than these ones are.
Agreed.
It's going to look so much better with staircase on the inside of this tower than on the outside like the last one. Okay, let's go over to the scrapping
Steph.
area. Yep.
Real quick, you were talking about staging stuff in that area. That one tank, that's one right there. We haven't talked about that. That's the tank that was just delivered recently. That's the one that I think is going to Massey's. Now, maybe I'm wrong. It might be going to the launch site. We don't know. Well, I don't know for sure, but it's hard to gauge size when you're looking at pictures like this. And to me, it seems like it's closer to the Massey sizes, if they're different than the launch site.
Now the shipping details have this tank the same weight as the one at the launch site, which I think was the same weight as the one at Massey's, but that minor detail might not be 100% accurate. They're already working on the plumbing on this tank.
Yeah, they are not wasting time on this one at all. That one will get dropped and it'll be ready to be plumbed in, I'll bet.
I'm kind of guessing it's for the launch site. That wouldn't surprise me either way. Thanks, Todd.
Hey, one way or the other, one of us will be right.
I want to thank Alicia Lee for a $5 super chat. It says this one's for Astro Joe, and he knows why. Rory the Warrior and Roger the Worrier were reared wrongly in a rural brewery. Thanks, Callistia. I'm not going to be doing that too much. At any rate, Bite-Sized Wisdom did have a question on the tower segments. How high will the cladding go up on the second tower, and will it be pre-installed?
In my opinion, it will be about the same as the current tower. and it will most likely get installed once the tower is stacked.
Agreed. I mean, it looks like there's room for cladding on the whole tower again with the tabs all over the towers. They seem to only be cladding the bottom half. And some of the towers at Kennedy aren't clad either. So there's a good chance they won't be clad in the near future. In the distant future, perhaps, they'll be fully clad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
agree. I just think that it will be cladded at the launch site because you're starting to add a lot of weight to that if you fully clad them, the ones that do need it.
agreed. And the one we know the Falcon 9 launch pad at 39A, the fixed service structure, they actually removed the cladding from that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially if they move the equipment from the first segment down into the base of the new tower.
Cool.
And along those same lines, question from Kal-El. I saw some info about the new tower being several meters taller. Is that true?
From the
Um,
FAA permits, it looks like it will be around the same height as the current tower.
All right.
okay, onto the scrapyard then. So not a lot of change here. A little dome. We saw a little dome, little tip of the ship's nose cone has been crushed. Not too much to report there. A lot of work going on in the commodities farm still. I can see the welding tents all over the place. So this is still far from being complete. A bit of water being delivered. Looks like booster 4 engines are still here, and booster 4 hasn't had much change. There's a tank from the old suborbital tank farm. A big change in this photo, obviously, is ship 26 here. Seems to have, there's a man lift up at it. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I don't know there's any actual work going on. We were having a few jokes about that in show and tell, that it's getting ready to fly, but I don't believe so.
Ship 26 is the little ship that could. You keep thinking it's done, and next thing you know, it's doing something amazing. So I don't think it'll fly, but I wouldn't be surprised if something really weird happened next, or maybe they're doing some more testing on it with all these stringers. It's so hard to tell with this ship what it's doing.
Agreed, and we may end up seeing it roll into Mega Bay 2. They may end up removing the engines and start adding more stuff to it. Who knows?
So it's a lot easier to remove the engines and scrap it in Mega Bay 2 now with the engine stands. Mega Bay and High Bay 1 right now is a little busy with the other two ships. So it's probably just being stored just for now till Mega Bay 2 becomes available again.
Agreed. We saw that they had to replace one of the outer engines on ship 30, and they had to use the 2-point lifter, lift the ship, remove the engine, lift it again, roll a new RVAC under it, and set it down, all using the bridge crane.
Oh, the old school method, the original method they used to use way back. Okay, this underground work all seems to be plumbed in and not quite utilised yet here and there from the commodities farm. Still not 100% sure what's going on there, but time will tell. One thing we noticed was how clear this area here is ready for, we expect the rest of the tower sections and chopstick arms and the SQD arm So it's all looking nice and cleared up, ready for a bit more infrastructure to come in.
And related to that, Crane Man is asking if the base for Launch Tower B is a few meters higher. Could that mean they can bring the ship QD to the original height again?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk in the chats about tower height and SQD arm height. They could. There's a lot of they coulds. They could do this. They could do that. Almost ad nauseum there, but yes, they could. It appears like it needs to be somewhat higher at some stage between the version 2 and 3 ships. Not necessarily till the version 2 booster comes around though, because as long as you're using the same version booster, the SQD should be relatively the same height. So they do need a future plan though for the new boosters, which could be a little bit taller yet. Which are going to be a little bit taller. Just while I got an internet, the parking garage is looking nice and finished, at least structurally still. It was last week. Still a bit of work going on with the elevators and a bit of auxiliary work on the ground around the area. I think there's some concreting going on underneath on the lower levels. I think in another photo in a minute we'll see some more concreting going on the ground floor down here. I think that's it for Sanchez. So any donations and any other questions for Sanchez, please, Joe?
I've had some questions come in, but I'm saving them for the appropriate time. I want to thank Miss Jax for gifting a membership and NC Builder for becoming a RGV flight supporter. Thanks for that support, keeping RGV in the air.
Hey, welcome aboard all these new members. Good on you. Okay, I'll go over to the build site. Now, this is interesting. I didn't notice this in Channel, so we get a nice shot across that side of Mega Bay 2. I'll keep an eye out for another photo like that. We can just make out the turntable, I think, over there. Anyhow, onto the build site. We'll start on this photo. Just it shows a nice shot inside the factory where all this area is concreted now. It hadn't been concreted before, so it's all looking nice and concreted.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they've been working on finishing the flooring and whatever utility access they had to have.
Okay, RGB team. Oh, that date's wrong. Sorry, I've got the wrong picture up. That date's not correct. Apologies there. But anyhow, this is how it used to look. And there's the Stargate building over there. Okay, they've got the star there to make sure you know where you're at. So quite a lot of extensive changes all throughout here.
Yeah, I was there in November, and the changes from November to here, October, November to here, is still just like a totally different place to me.
Absolutely. Well, the parking garage wasn't there then, and quite a few things. Half of the factory, the whole office building. Over here we can see where the mega bays and that now stand, and the whole factory in here now, and the office over here. So it's quite a lot of change. Okay, with that, let's move on. A couple of nice photos inside of Mega Bay 2, just while we're here. So between concrete, looks like the concrete work's finished out the front here. I guess they'll be moving on to this area next. So they haven't been able to get ships into the Mega Bay just recently. And of course, all this work going on with these work platforms, which are a nice angular shape rather than a nice curved shape. I think it was Stumpy might have said, it was up to me, or I guess myself as well, including that we put our foot down there by mistake. So we can see the staircases in as well, and then the platforms around here as well. This platform hasn't got its actual decking yet, but this platform has its decking. We can see the engine platform inside that stand.
Yeah, I believe it was when Ship 30 was getting ready for its static fire test, and when we were seeing into the bay, it was just the tower of scaffolding when they were getting it ready to roll out. And so seeing these platforms now it makes a world of difference now.
I'm wondering, I'm just going to put it out there. So if I'm right, I can say I was right. I'm wondering if they're still going to bring scaffolding guys in there to fill in those gaps to get to different layers, depending on what area they need to do. Because they work and they can fill in gaps. They can get over places that you can't normally, you wouldn't think you could get a scaffolding. They can do it. So I'm wondering if they're just going to, that's like their starting area and staging area for stuff, but yet they're still going to wrap it up with some scaffolding. I don't know. It's just weird. Like, I agree. Why do they leave the gaps in there? That's not OSHA friendly, from my experience, at least.
And I think it's being worked out, correct me if I'm wrong, but the tail side of a ship, when they do the engine install, because of the way the vacuum wrapped holes here, the tail side is on this front side. So that does add some to what you're saying, but perhaps, and maybe that's why we're not seeing them yet, perhaps these side stands aren't going to have the engine platform on top of the raised platform, and these are just going to be for tile work, and perhaps they can put the ship on 180 degrees so that the tiles do face these new platforms. Like, it appears like these new platforms are actually coming around the corner here, around this side as well, and there's more parts still here, and we can see some tabs here which indicate that this whole platform system's going to continue around this area of the bay.
Yeah, I would agree. It looks like they're going to build the permanent structures and then fill in what they need, but it won't be all scaffolding like we're seeing in high bay right now.
Yeah, we'll get to that in 1 sec. So while we're here, we've got a really nice photo of Booster 14. So we've got the LOX tank with the common dome up top. I believe it's 12 rings tall now, and this section will make it 16 rings tall.
Yep, I believe that one makes it 16.
Which is really good to see it advancing quickly. So in the back here, if I get it right, we've got Booster 12, 13 and 14 respectively across the back. And then 15 in the front. So that's ship 30, 31 and 32's booster if they fly 31 and 32. Big if there. Depends on how this next flight goes, I think. There's still a lot of talk, I guess, probably by me, that perhaps if ship 30 and 31 meet their goals, perhaps they won't need to fly ship 32. Guess we'll see in the near future. So speaking of scaffolding and ships, yeah, they've got a lot of scaffolding on ship 30 right now, and she's missing a tile or two.
Related,
Yeah,
Missing Tools is asking, some have said a layer of ablative tiles, but Elon described it as a heat shield material, which is like a silicone felt ablative. Isn't that what's used now? Not the kale wool, but what's the
I,
change?
be- I believe that they're putting an ablative coating on under the tiles, and then a tile that's twice as strong on top. So the ablative exhibit tile comes off, the ablative surface underneath will protect the ship as well, and flaps and so on. Replace the K-wool and put an ablative coat under the tiles.
yeah, it will be interesting to see if they do remove that kale wool, because right now they have it with tiles in certain spots just to keep it in place.
Along the edges here, the piers have kept a few tiles around the edges to keep the K-wool in place. K-wool, is that what you're calling it?
Kale wool.
Okay, thank you.
And also in the middle, in the body section, you can see certain tiles that they've left on. So most of them have been stripped, but where the cable is, they've left a couple just to keep it in place, like on the lower flap there.
Excellent. Excuse me. Right. They're still doing a little bit of drainage work. I think this trench is slowly moving along. I think they're replacing two smaller pipes with this larger diameter pipe just to tie in all this new drainage since they've totally cut up the whole ring yard. So they're having to redo the drainage just a little tiny bit in amongst all that. I don't think we're going to see a ring yard so much. We may see little sections, but with all this hallway and these extra areas, I don't see any reason why they'll need to store any sections outside, except like here where they're staging them to go actually into the bays. And quite frankly, I'm surprised if we'll see this in the future and not just the ring sections come out and straight into the bays rather than being staged outside as well.
I was just going to say that as well, Stephanie. I'm wondering if that little wing part towards the lower part of the picture is for staging stuff that'll come out once everything's done. The roads are all smooth. They'll stage them in that area because it is like kind of off on its own a little bit, and then from there they run them into the different factories or the different mega buildings that they need and go straight to stacking.
So is this area along here too that's not part of the factory? It's just an alleyway.
Yeah, that's true. And then they've got a door in front of each one of the mega bays. So yeah, they might stage them in there.
Just bring them straight out. Well, we're expecting taller ship sections at least to come out. So yeah, plus perhaps some normal sections come out as well through here. It's all a bit of a guess as to what's happening here as far as sections and where they're going to be staged. And I think a lot of what we just said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think once Mega Bay 2 is completed and all that construction out front is completed, we're seeing things we haven't seen before.
Yeah, we hope so. That sounds really exciting there, Lawrence. Okay, we're even pouring concrete inside still. Now, I wonder if that's to do with the other foundations in here for the other turntable and so on. It's interesting.
Oh, I may be wrong, but I thought someone said it was pumping up to one of the other layers where they were doing the floors for the different platforms, but I could be wrong. I don't see a pumper in there. But there might be out of sight to the right a little bit.
Concrete floors. Now, hang on. There is a photo over that way. 1 second. Oh. It was in Sanchez. 1 second.
Yeah, it was one of the first photos you were showing over in this direction.
There. So that's the concrete pump. Yeah, its beam is up. That could be a thing.
Yeah, I think he's pumping it up to that second level of platforms.
Concrete floor platforms. Okay. Very good.
Before we move on too much further, one more question on the tile issue from Daniel Hogben. Will the ablative layer be something similar to the quote-unquote half tile we've seen on Chip 29?
The half
There's
tile. Hang on. Go on.
so many theories behind that. Somebody has it right, but I just think we're going to have to see them actually get stuff accomplished on it. Because I was just thinking, technically the ablative layer of anything is meant to be burnt off. It's not a secondary protection. It's normally the first layer of protection, and then it burns off and they take that off. So what's to say that this ablative material doesn't go on top of the tiles? I'm probably wrong, but again, I think we need to see more from SpaceX before we can really get a good idea on it.
Well, I'm pretty sure Elon mentioned a ablative layer under the tiles. And it's when a tile comes up, ideally it won't ever be ablated. It's only if a tile actually comes off.
Agreed.
Okay, let's go to tent 4 area. And you're right, Todd, the ablative layers are designed to ablate and be removed slowly as the heat gets hotter. I'm just referring back to a comment from Elon, that's all, just to answer your question.
No, I agree. I totally get it. And one of the things too is he was also playing a game. So did he get his facts right? Although most of the facts are his to come up with, did it come out right? Because now, was there actually a statement, or was this the statement made while he was playing his game?
Yeah, that is true. Okay, tent 4 area. One of the aero shields has been moved either into the tent to get tiled or into the factory to get tiled. Otherwise, not a lot of change in that particular area. Moving down the back here, we have some... Okay, from the office, new office area, they've did some directional boring, and you can see here they've already pulled in one of the lines and they're pulling in the next line as we speak, which seems to line up with this new plumbing here. So I guess some kind of water supply for the new office building, which more than likely comes back from the water treatment plant over here at Sanchez here. There's a water treatment plant here, so it may come from there. And a question I've asked in relation to that is why not just bring the water supply for the new office straight from the building? But I think it was you, Todd, says considering how much they changed things around here, it might have just been easy to put it right around the back here, out of the way, so that if they do changes, it won't be affected.
Yeah, you might as well start with it out of the way rather than have to get it out of the way later, because I don't even think they know what that yard's going to look like anywhere over there, especially after the tower section. I don't even think they know what they're doing there after this, and maybe one project further than what they have planned. So anything could change over there.
Agreed, and especially if we think that the tile bakery will get its own dedicated building in the future, it would make sense to already have it out of the way for whatever ground work they need to get done.
Yep, I agree with that too. Okay. Still no idea really what this building is, except it's going to have a lot of heat dissipation requirements and a decent amount of power. And just by memory, there's still more conduits buried under here for something more to go here again. Perhaps another bakery in this area, perhaps. Something I missed on show and tell, there's all this chine material here. New chines for the booster, which is interesting to see over this part of the factory. It kind of indicates that new areas of the factory are starting to come online, I think.
It would
Okay,
be.
go on, Lawrence.
I was just going to say it would be interesting if we start seeing booster parts rolling out with parts of the chines already installed.
Oh, nice. And Todd, what were you going to say?
I was just agreeing that, yeah, they definitely have to be getting more and more of that area opened up and working. Hopefully someday soon there'll be somebody who does like an interview or a tour of that area and we can really see what's going on right now. But, who knows when that'll be.
I see. Yes, can't wait for that little bit of video to come out. So they've pulled down this formwork off this wall here, the rebar and everything's still there. Not sure what's going on there. It was quite flooded there for quite some time. So this is the main stormwater drain for all these downpipes along here. And then I can't quite see it at a frame here. There's another set of drainage pipes from the actual road come out here as well in the future. I guess they're still... Oh, this photo shot. I guess they're still waiting for some approvals to dump water out here. I'm not sure what's going on there. And just for a change, there's some concrete going on.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
I was just going to say it's interesting that they are using concrete down there and not asphalt.
Perhaps they'll put asphalt on top. I think all this road has been concrete all the way along. I think these roads were asphalt, but perhaps this one's always been concrete.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what they're going to be putting over there, moving over there, transporting over there. As far as the wall being torn down, I think that's just SpaceX being SpaceX, and they've realized, why let the concrete set? Why even pour it? Just tear it down before we get it dry.
Seems to be that way some days. Okay, here, we're just going to go over to this area here. I guess we can call this a ring yard / scrap yard, because they seem to be doing some scrapping here as well. So in previous weeks we saw a barrel section here with a number of rings with an internal scaffolding which is gone and been replaced by these two rings, which this one looks a bit wonky. And very interesting here is some of these articles, which looks like they're either brought in, pressed and stretched, or they're done here in the press pit here. And you can see the cutouts for the nose cone. For the nose cone sections, was it, or the domes? Or the nose cone sections, is it? No, the dome. For the E-domes. You got me questioning myself now. Is it domes or nose cones?
I believe with that shape, it looks like the E-domes.
Yeah, I think you're right now. Sorry about that little confusion. So
Yeah,
you can see they're pressed here in the shape, the curve that way along, and the curve across as well, ready to stamp out the actual shape. And here's some blanks. So it kind of appears like they're doing this locally now in the factory in that new press pit.
Yeah, the press pit will be able to be used for multiple. It should be able to be used for multiple different things. They'll bring in dies for, let's say, E-dome, and then they'll stamp out enough E-dome sections for maybe 3, 4, 5 boosters, 3, 4, 5 domes, who knows. And then they'll change over the formwork and the dies, and they'll start doing something for nose cones or something different. So this could be the remnants of a certain area they've done and the leftovers, or parts of the dies that hold the dies in that area. Something. I think we're going to see more stuff like this, different shapes as time goes on when they switch to a different tooling.
Certainly hope so.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed for sure. I know the ring watchers definitely have their fingers crossed on that.
Absolutely. So this is an interesting area to keep an eye on. Go ahead, Lawrence.
I was just going to say, hopefully we get an insight into that soon.
A lot of different people I've heard they want to see this part of the area of the factory. Other people want to see that area over there, part of the factory. So there's a lot of different people want to see a lot of different parts of the factory. I believe this area here, we've seen photos through here of barrel sections in here and here. So perhaps some of this factory is already operational, at least to some degree. And remembering this is a R&D factory, so this factory is going to change over time as well, till they learn how to build a factory to build a ship, which is amazing the way they're doing both R&Ds side by side.
Building the machine to build the machine.
Yeah, while designing and iterating the machine on both accounts. Hey, looking over to the office building, these lower photos, these side angle photos are good to see how much of the flooring is concreted. Still appears to be a lot more concrete to go. I believe that one's not poured, that one's not poured. This one looks completely poured. You can see all the way through over there. Looks pretty fully poured. It looks like the ground floor is poured as well. I keep getting told by the Americans that I have to call this the ground floor and the first floor, whereas in Australia we'd call this the first floor and the second floor. But that's fine. There's a detail I haven't finished here. I thought they might have had a dropped roof there for a second. You can see a big horizontal truss section over here. We'll go to an aerial photo in a sec to help fill in this area. And it appears to be an open top. Here it doesn't seem to have any kind of girders or purlins across here to finish the roof off. So not sure it's going to be an open top, and I'm hoping a starship's going to sit in here with its top poking out through that hole. It's only a guess. Pretty wild one at that.
As soon as they got done, it seems like they got done with that second floor concrete. Their concrete focus shifted.
Over here, the concrete focus has shifted to where?
Down the road, I'm thinking, is what Lawrence means.
Yeah, as we'll see in a little bit. I think all their concrete resources were shifted other places.
I got you what you mean now. Yep. There's certainly going to be a lot of concrete over there. So it's a bit of a mystery, this little hole in the roof. Because, I mean, I don't know, unless it's some kind of structure, they needed this diagonal beam through here. But I can't see any points to weld the next set of steel work through here. So that looks clean. It still looks like a hole in the roof, which is very puzzling.
Yeah, I don't see anything that could be put in there. Glass open area atrium. I don't know, because it's definitely, I don't see anything for anything to hook to it.
Yeah, I mean,
looks
it could
like-
be some sort of
Go on.
architectural skylight area.
But even for skylight, it's going to need some kind of support to support the panels, skylight panels. Unless it's going to be one great big piece.
That's what I was thinking. One giant piece that sits on top of that, and who knows? We'll figure it out sooner or later. But as of right now, who knows? It's SpaceX. So hard to keep a guess.
I want to see a ship poking its head up through there. That'd look awesome.
I'm not disagreeing.
That would be cool.
A little detail on the front here. We see these horizontals bolted in line with the vertical posts, but there's tabs on the front here. So there's going to be something on the front of this section. Some people are guessing perhaps more balcony. It's a bit silly, a bit odd to have it here. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there in the very near future again.
Steph, those tabs don't continue on past the triangle. Is that correct from what I'm seeing from here?
No, they're only on this section here. They don't continue over here.
Yeah, and I've got a very related question here from Bite-Sized Wisdom. Now that the office building has balconies, is it still possible for the factory to be connected to it?
We're just about to go to that area right now. Let's see if I can find the right photos here. Now, remembering that this space is stepped back as it goes up, it steps back, goes up, steps back, goes up. And this area with balconies, they could perhaps be closed in because they have this. There could be a curtain wall on that side, but this side definitely looks like balconies. And yeah, now we can see the footings here for the factory extension out. This area has come all the way, especially here, these ones, right up to the office building. So that's very interesting. I'm not sure how the balconies, like I just said, if this is vertical and that's step back, you would think it's going to look a little bit odd with a big open sort of V shape in here. If you can imagine what I'm trying to express there, there'll be vertical walls on the factory and then the office is going to step back. That's a good question. And I don't have an answer, sorry. We'll just have to see how they go. We can see, in previous flyovers, we could see a line through here that matches building to the front of the factory here. And now these puttings through as well, that'll get narrower. Obviously, this bit here is going to get narrower as it gets closer to the office. And these footings are in line with this end of the factory, with this part of the factory. So that it's going to be a bit of mystery what happens in there. I'm not sure that answers the question or not.
Yeah, I don't
That is,
think. Go ahead, Lawrence.
go ahead, Todd.
I was just, but yeah, I don't think we can answer it. I don't think the balconies would necessarily say they can't, or they can, because as we've been seeing before, what we think they can't do, they do. So it's, yeah, we can't answer that yet. Even our local engineers who have looked at this, or architects who have looked at this, I still think he was scratching his head. I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Yes. That's our local, our residential architect, Philakid, is amazing with the details and knowledge that guy has. I think he's seen just about every building in the United States get built, to be honest. Now, an interesting note with these footings is they're not particularly lining up. I'd imagine these footings were going to stop here to line up this square, to finish the square up once they get this block of land. They seem to come all the way through. That doesn't mean they won't fill this area in. It just perhaps it only goes to here somewhere when it does get filled in. Just interesting to note that these continue past the end of this, if you know what I mean. Something
Yeah,
else?
I think they're just trying to make everything uniform on the land that they do have right now.
It's going to be odd. The OCD people are finding the shape of this factory very concerning. Something we didn't see in show and tell, they've covered up, at least temporarily. I don't think any of that's permanent. They've covered up this doorway.
Yeah, that does look like a temporary door.
Like just like plastic film, even. I'm sure they are, which orange, yellow bits are. Okay. I think we've pretty well covered the factory, the bays, and the office. Let's have a little look over at the village. They seem to have come to a bit of a halt with building houses. I think there's one here getting finalised. I mean, there's still vacant blocks. I guess they'll build more houses in the future. And there's still blocks they don't own here and there, obviously. I can see a lot of the new houses are getting their landscaping, at least lawn done, which is nice. The new rec centre. Now, I'm not sure the rec centre's going in this area or this area. The addresses are a bit confusing. It sort of looks like it could be that area, but could even be that way. I'm not sure. What do you think, Lawrence?
If you zoom in where those mobile houses or tiny houses are, you can see a staircase that leads into that area now.
Wow, well done. Did not see that. Okay, so that sort of indicates it may be in this area, doesn't it?
I would say that makes it very easy access for anybody staying in that area to just walk right down.
I mean, it sort of adds access to this hovercraft landing spot too. So other than that, there's not a lot of change here in the village that we noticed in the show and tells. So do you think we've covered everything at the build site and the village?
I'm pretty sure we have, but speaking of that show and tell, I just want to remind everybody, especially our new members, make sure you get Discord. If you have Discord, link it to your accounts, your YouTube accounts, so that you can get into the show and tell chats, because that's where we like to go over things. If you're sitting there thinking you wish you could voice your opinion on things. That's where everybody gets a chance to talk and go over things, and we can be in there for hours sometimes. So make sure you guys get your everything linked up so you can get into the next show and tell.
Agreed, and that's how I started. Is I was able to get in with the membership into Discord and start chatting with everybody about this.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun on those shows, and I want to thank 55 Chevy Guy Steve for gifting 5 new memberships, as well as NC Builder, who became a member earlier, already upgraded their membership to early access. Wonderful support, y'all. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, here we're going. Yep, we'll go over to the launch site then on that.
Nobody
really
wants to see the launch site.
Yeah, nothing's changed there. Let's just call it a day.
The nice panorama shot here. Sorry, my word just escaped me then. Showing Port Isabel and Padre Island. Okay, let's go on to the new launch tower section. We'll start with the crane, shall we? So the new crane is getting assembled. All those boxes, it comes in a box, like IKEA, all comes in a box. I say a box, I mean a lot of containers. And all little bits and pieces, you can see them pulling out of the boxes here. All those little bits and pieces and adding into to create this part of the truss. I don't know that I need to bring up a picture of the crane. I think we've all got a pretty good idea what this crane's going to look like. Rather than a twin power boom, it's just going to have this much larger section of truss boom. I think Zach touched on that there a couple of weeks ago when he did his last show about how this boom's going to be a bit different. I think it's the biggest crane I can get, something like, was it 1,600 ton lifting capacity in its heaviest configuration?
Yeah, the CC 8800-1 with the Saren's Boombuster edition will let them do the 1,600 ton lifting.
Lego kit, I like that. Crane in a box, that's it. And just while we're on the crane, it's base chassis and engine unit and cabin are here somewhere, and it's there's a name for this piece. It's a gantry, I think we're calling it, all to be put on top, and looking fairly large already. These tracks came in 2 sections each. So there's a front section and a rear section of tracks. There's a massive amount of these counterweights already slid underneath here, so there's a lot of weight underneath this thing. And I believe there's like some numerous amount of trucks, 10s or 20s or 30s of trucks, just delivering counterweights alone for this thing. And we haven't even seen the counterweight tray yet, the rest of the counterweights.
Yeah, they've already put the main body of the crane together, and I believe the LR11K at the one commonly referred to as Marvin has actually been lifting the counterweights.
Yeah, that's right. I think pretty sure that and that already those 2 items already up on top. I guess that's the real business end of this crane. There's a lot of weight gets put on that end of it. So yeah, the crane's looking nice. We've seen these steel items before. They sits on. I'm pretty sure we saw that with Kong way back in the day as well. It appears that's where the crane's going to stay. There's access to pick up tower pieces, I guess, from over this area where they'll be staged and pivot around and put them on top of the tower. Moving on to the tower, all 4 of these corner legs are now in place.
Yeah, we saw some pictures of that this morning. They have been lined up and appear to be bolted down, and I'm not sure. I haven't seen since we started the stream if they're adding any of the cross braces, but yeah, they're not wasting any time as usual.
Yeah,
Okay. Go on.
last night I watched them finish putting up the legs, and by yesterday afternoon they had already installed one of the cross beams right between those two legs and one of the wall sections as well.
Okay, so these are some wall sections here. So just going back to the crane for a second, thanks, Nate. Only this part of the crane comes in boxes. Literally, the rest of the boom, the normal sections of boom, will come on a truck like we normally see. Boom sections arrive. Thanks, Nate. So we've got some. Here's some more of them. The wall sections. I'll just bring up. I've got some photos. 1 second.
Yeah, we've been seeing the boom for the crane starting to arrive now.
One second.
While we wait, I got a question from Wideford at the beginning of the show. It says, launch site question, but may not be here later, so I'll ask this now. How will the booster be lowered onto the OLM after catch if they need to remove the stabilization pins before launch? Really good question. Darth, what do you think?
I think what we're going to end up seeing is they may just temporarily lower it onto the OLM while they move a transport stand over for an actual lowering. So they may just set it down on the clamps temporarily without really aligning it, just to relieve some weight, but it will then get transferred to a booster stand.
Just going on that. Remember, it won't happen on orbital launch mount 1. They're only going to catch a booster. This rapid iteration is not. None of that's going to happen on orbital pad A. Here on orbital pad B, the OLM is going to be different. So we'll see an iteration there as far as those stabilizer pins go. It'll be completely different. Everyone's saying that this new OLM is going to be different. Everyone like Ryan Hansen and Zach and a few others are all saying this new OLM is going to be vastly different to the OLM A. So that's more than likely going to be built in. It is a good question, but the question is relating to what we're seeing on pad A, and pad B is going to be different. So we can't really answer that until we see what pad B looks like. And that will definitely be an iteration, a very obvious iteration, because of the way things are done right now. Pad A is a real, just a test bed, a stepping stone, if you might.
Excellent point.
Going back to our...
Agreed. And once...
Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly throw in, once Pad B is operational, Pad A will be going offline to undergo those iterations.
Absolutely. Okay, moving back to the tower section. The new tower base. So we've got the 4 corner pieces in. A big shout out to Benedict here for these images. We showed these last week as well, but now we're seeing pieces put together. I thought it'd be pertinent to look at them again. There's a tiny inaccuracy. Benedict's been busy updating these renders. He just didn't have time this week. He apologises. But there's actually 6 sections here and not 4. Otherwise, it's much the same. Otherwise, it's fairly correct. So I've already seen some of these sections slid down between these 2 legs. Not sure which 2 legs it was exactly. But I've already seen some of this wall section go in. So unlike the original tower where it was formwork and then concrete and then steel added later, this one, the steel is being integrated. Excuse me. So
Yeah.
then they're going to pour concrete inside all this. Go on.
Just gonna say, we've had a lot of questions, and I know it's been explained, but we have a lot of questions about this. And just remember that the metal that they're putting up now is considered the formwork and the actual structure itself. It's a composite concrete. Oh, I can't remember the exact name. But what you see going up now will always be there. It's part of the structure. They're filling it with concrete to make it stronger. They might beef it up and put plates on top of it. That's been talked about to make it stronger for it to resist the heat. But this is not just formwork that's going up now. This is part of the actual base of the tower.
Agreed.
And
And we've seen with the original tower, they did a concrete base with a metal backing and shielding for the front, and that was added much later on, and then a metal framework to hoist the drawworks and the spool. But in at 39A, they actually did the whole thing as a concrete structure. This time, they decided to do a steel structure filled with concrete.
agreed. So I just had a quick look at chat. Someone's noticed that the tracks are offset. I had noticed that. I wonder what the reason for that is. I'm just asking Nate if he can give me an answer, because he knows. We've got BJ around too. Between BJ and Nate, they know a lot about this crane already. Interesting. Okay, so those 4 legs are up, and already some wall sections. Having seen my screen, Nate, they're just here. They're offset forward and backwards. No idea. Never noticed. Yeah. Okay, so it's not just me. Cool. Very good. I don't know whether it's a trick of the camera. Sometimes it's a trick of the camera. It doesn't seem to be a trick of the camera, because we can see sort of the lines. I don't know whether they're just not fully installed yet, or I mean, the counterweights are there. It'd have to be fully installed. That's a really good question.
Actually, in the diagrams for the crane in the documentation, they show the offset tracks.
Okay, must be okay. So to answer that question, it's in the design. No idea
Yeah, I
why.
believe it was talked about in show and tell. I just don't recall the exact reasoning or if there was a reason, but I believe they said that that's normal.
Okay, I don't know why I missed that in show and tell. Anyhow, thank you for all your answers there. I've got some answers here from Capsa and Nate and Creeper. Thank you. Awesome. We've got a good community. The beauty about this community is whenever I or somebody doesn't know something, a question's asked, there's so many different talents and skill sets and qualifications in our little community that's just amazing. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to be amongst you all and leading this conversation. I always feel blessed to be doing this, so appreciate it all, everybody. Moving on to this area, it's being dewatered, and we still have really no idea why. It's being dewatered, so it's probably something heavy, and perhaps it's going to get dug deep, like this footing under the tower. So there's been suggestions of a water tower or part of GSC. Can't see much of GSC needing to be quite that heavy, so it's a bit of a mystery, this little area. I guess we'll find out in the near future once again.
The authority on cranes, the crane man, says the offset crawlers might be linked to the turning radius of the crane.
In one particular direction or the other, sort of. I understand that's a good theory. I'd like to see how that actually works in practice. Thanks, Crane Man. Crane Man's another one of our experts on the cranes, hence his username. One of our European friends. Okay, over in the OLM area, I haven't seen any substantial footing work yet underneath, except for some whole heap of piles going in. And now there's a line of piles running this way. And not sure why. I mean, we did see some piles driven in exterior to the tower when they redid underneath Pad A after launch 1. So I guess it's something to do with stabilising the concrete. Because, man, when concrete vibrates under a launch, it liquefies the soil underneath, and that, well, we know very well that's a really bad idea from launch one. I actually expected to see more of Pad A getting torn up by now, but it seems to be being used as a staging area for soils that are getting removed and moved around. For now, it appears this comms hut is safe. Once again, there's talk that that's part of Pad A as well as Pad B, so that may end up staying yet. Especially if they're not building a second tank farm that Elon mentioned. They're not going to build a second tank farm, rather they're going to share the tank farm between the two pads, which leads to what I was talking about earlier with the large locks line we saw at Sanchez. It could be here. I apologise. I mean, that locks pipe at Sanchez here could be to integrate these next new tanks. And we expect to see open flanges at the end of it as well to continue the plumbing on to Pad B. There may be talking, show and tells was talking about perhaps having a second set of pumps and chillers over here. It seems a bit far, seems a bit difficult to have to tap into these cryogenic pipes under the concrete here post after the pumps and hippos. So perhaps we'll see a second set of hippos and pumps over in this area somewhere as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I'm kind of expecting that in the future we may see a second tank farm. But for now, they're just trying to get this pad up as quickly as possible. And sharing the tank farm seems to be the best way to do that right now.
I would agree with that. So we've got one stand already. It's not actually placed. It's on an angle. It's not actually where it belongs yet. So I expect to see another one of these stands. So two more of these 1-2 stands to complete this little bit of plumbing. So this one looks ready to go for a tank, whereas up at Massey's, the footings are still getting poured. So good chance the new tank at Sanchez is going here. But it could get to, when I say that, there's a good chance it'll go to Massey's as well, just to prove me wrong.
Steph or Lawrence, do you guys know how long ago did they pour those footings, and how long have they been ready at this point? I'm not sure.
It's been a couple of days.
I don't think they were there.
Day?
I don't think they were there last flyover. I think they were still cutting out.
No, but I think they poured that. The piles went in almost 2 weeks ago, and I believe the pour was a couple of days ago after they got done with the pile cap.
Agreed.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was been over a week since they've been ready. My thing would be, why wouldn't they stage the new tank on its spot if it's ready? But if it's that close, then, and it's also not protected by the wall. I was just thinking, they like to put stuff as soon as they got it where it belongs. But it hasn't been ready that long, so that goes that idea.
I'm wondering also, once they put those two stands in and the two tanks, it's getting awful tight in here to get vehicles through, that we may see this gate opening up beforehand. It's going to be pretty tricky to get the tank in here. I mean, I guess, route down that way, then back that way, and they do some pretty amazing things with those SPMTs.
I think we're going to see the rest of that container wall going real soon, since they've already started the demolition of the shed.
Yeah, this area is getting demolished. I've heard Go on.
I was going to bring that up too. That I think this container wall is going, or a good portion of it's going soon, because they've already started on the shed.
So, what do you think about Hoppy's future, Todd? I'll start with Todd.
I don't know, but they better not hurt Hoppy. That's all I gotta say is don't hurt Hoppy or we gonna be mad.
What do you reckon, Dart?
I think they just build around Hoppy at this point.
Well, hopefully you're correct there. Let's go over to the tank farm.
Yeah, they can move Hoppy, they can build around Hoppy, but they need to leave Hoppy alone. One way or the other, it needs to be intact. We need Hoppy.
True, she's a real icon of the launch site. Okay, on to the tank farm. Some things to note here are a busted pipe from the last launch. It's the vacuum hoses for the perlite. So that operation's still going on. What a massive operation that's been just on its own, just that alone, to get rid of all the perlite out of these tanks. All of these 5 tanks at least anyway.
Agreed, and with these LOX tanks, they have even more perlite than the liquid nitrogen did.
Correct, because the internal tank was slightly different sizes between the LOX tank and the nitrogen tanks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they have smaller tanks, inner tanks.
The inner tanks, that's what I mean, for sure. Thanks for that correction. They started to pull down the footing of the last nitrogen tank, and I think that's always, I think that's a made bend, that one. I don't think that's a problem from launching. There is a bit of infrastructure being removed, notably the main LOX lines around the front here have been removed, so we're going to see a bit more of this infrastructure and plumbing associated with the nitrogen tanks and the LOX tanks being removed. So we think over here they'll probably take that elbow off and put a cap just on that LOX line to finalise that the old LOX system. I think the last time they used that was during a cryo test or something on the booster, and then once they did the drain back, they drained those tanks, and that was the end of the tanks. Okay, last but not least, how's that time going? That's fine. Last but not least, let's go over to the all-important OLM. So I've been seeing a little bit of work on the OLM with some, I think around 10 clamps have been removed and put back in. There's the stabilizer pins have been put back on. There's obviously some work going on the deck up here. I'm not sure what that means. There's more burn plates required. Trying to get a better angle.
All in all, it seems pretty hopeful. I mean, they have not. Yes, they're doing the normal maintenance work, but we haven't seen anything large come off. We haven't seen any blown out hoses yet. Whether or not they replace hoses just as a safety precaution, we don't know. But it's seems like the work they have been doing is not that major. Like, I know everything there is major, but by comparison to previous launches.
Yes, and what I've seen just from watching on my own, um, so far what I know is we haven't seen any of the internal flex hoses of the OLM be replaced yet, and that's always a good sign because um, not just the BQD hose, but for each of the 20 individual Raptor quick disconnects, we have not seen those hoses being replaced yet. We've also seen new equipment actually being added to the OLM since the last launch. They've opened up the side doors to actually move equipment inside the OLM. So it doesn't seem to be as bad with how quickly they're actually doing all these refurbs and adding stuff to it. The things that, from all of our observations that we've seen, that are getting the major amount of work this time are the legs.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, the legs seem to have copped a bit of a hiding this time again. So once again, before the questions flood in about rectifications for that, once again we're going to repeat that this OLM is going to be extensively upgraded once Pad B is online. So there's, like at most, there'll be another 3 launches from this OLM, I'm imagining, and by the time version 2 ships ready, I think we'll see version 2 ships launched from the new pad, perhaps. I mean, maybe we'll see a version 2 ship launched from here. I have a little speculation that they're going to try for Booster 5 catch because they're not overly concerned now if the OLM does get destroyed because, I mean, it helps when they're going to do the upgrade, doesn't it? It helps with disassembly. And they'll have the new tower online soon enough. So I don't think it's quite as risky as a lot of people might think. And I believe they're going to do the landing over the OLM now rather than up to the side. And hence the water deluge at landing time as well.
I would agree with that, especially with the work we've seen on the chopsticks this time. This time it hasn't been so much of repairing, but more readying with the landing beams. We've seen tests on the far landing beam there with them already raising and lowering it.
And they've run the I can't remember what they were calling them, the little
Pushers.
locators, the pushers. They've pushed both pushers at the end of each one, which allows the beam to come up and down. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's them there back in the middle, is it? In flyover.
That's just the middle part. If you'll go closer to the tower, you'll see the other pusher on the end. These chopsticks have 2 pushers. Future chopsticks look like they will only have 1 because of the short length.
Okay, good observation there. Thank you. We did see the SQD cop a little bit of damage. I'm not sure how that's going. I haven't had a good look at a ground shot yet. So overall, preparations for Launch 5 are going ahead nicely. I think for now what's going to stop Launch 5 happening sooner rather than later is actually Ship 30's tile upgrades. That could take a little bit of time. So there's plenty of time to finish off the OLM ready for Flight 5.
Agreed. Yeah, especially this time. It's for once they're not going to have to wait as long on the regulatory side since there's no mishap investigation for Flight 4, and the OLM and launch infrastructure seem to have held up pretty well after the last round of upgrades that they did.
Someone's saying OLM destruction damage will definitely lead to some annoying FAA reports. That's Tehran. Perhaps that could be a thing. Okay, Joe, we might go with some more donations and questions, please.
Absolutely. If I could get my mouse to work. Okay. I want to thank Smurf Trooper for gifting a membership, as well as Jake Window for gifting 5. Much appreciated support. That's awesome. Some questions from earlier in chat that I was saving for the launch site. Moon to Mars asks, do you think they will modify the existing water deluge plate on Pad 1 before Pad 2 is finished for 35 engines?
I don't think we'll see 35 engines launched from Pad A, and Pad B is going to have something totally different, we believe. I'm not sure what exactly, but we have an understanding that Pad B is going to have a totally different system for flame and noise mitigation. Possibly not a trench. The thing with a trench, in my mind only, it's just my opinion, is if they're putting a trench, not that there's a lot of room for one, that we would see the similar soil stabilization that we saw at Massey's to reduce water inflow to actually dig a trench. So I'm not sure it's going to be a trench. It may be some kind of hybrid, but I think to answer that particular question, we're going to see all that iteration here on Pad B rather than Pad A. Remember, once Pad B is online, Pad A is getting completely upgraded, which may mean everything down to the deluge plates. It may not mean that. We really don't know yet. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. Rex asking how many tower sections get stacked before IFT5?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes,
Yes.
agreed.
Agreed.
All right. Gamer asked, why would SpaceX have shorter chopsticks installed on Tower 2?
The reason for the shorter chopsticks is they knew the ones that were originally built were too long. And with the testing we've seen, they confirmed it with a lot of the recoil. But I believe they're going to start the landing attempts with these longer sticks while they can, so they can dial in the landing software.
Yeah,
Agreed.
less shorter sticks equals less mass. Less mass makes it easier to move. Easier to move makes it quicker to move. So I think they'll have more agility with these smaller arms to get in and out of the way as needed, with less energy to make it happen.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes great sense. Boost 13 asks, where do we think the new OLM will be?
And we'll let
Pretty
you show
good.
that one, Steph.
Yeah, so we know exactly where it's going to be because of the outline of the foundations here. So we can see the main tower here, and we can see the area to the rear for the drawworks, and we can see the area to the side for the dead block, the dead thing, the other side of it anyway, which indicates the OLM will be exactly right here.
And we can already start to see some groundwork prep. Not enough to where we can get an idea on what it's going to look like or what angles will be, but they're already starting to drill in that area, and put the CFA piles down and prepare the area. So as they go along, we'll know more about how it looks. But yeah, it's definitely going on that side.
Just before we move from the section, a little update. We're thinking this could be where they stage the tower sections.
That is
Yeah,
a very good point, actually.
I was going to say earlier that I think that might be a staging point, not just for the tower sections, but in the future, that may be a place where they may want to stage boosters or ships while they're waiting to stack them, too.
Now, the crane building area there, where they're putting the crane together, and then that square that's they're dewatering right now. Do we know? Have we seen ground pictures? Are those on the same level?
Well, it wouldn't
Kind of looks.
necessarily need. It wouldn't need to be for staging sections because
Well, I'm thinking that the SPMTs pull up from where the crane was being built and onto that area, and that where their existing pad is for the crane's construction is also, part of the area they pull in and out and staging area. So it might be that whole little section right there, including where they're dewatering.
Yep. Okay,
Cool.
Joe. Thanks.
Yeah, and Kal-El is asking, how do they get the concrete all the way up to fill in the top sections?
With a very powerful concrete pump.
Yeah, they
And
got the pumps that will deliver it up to a certain amount, and then they will have some. If they have to go above the height of what an existing pump will do, then there will be a secondary pump further up that will continue to pump, and it'll just step stage as high as it needs to go.
yeah, it's much the same. This is all technology used in the construction of skyscrapers and so forth. None of this is really new tech as far as the construction goes. We've seen it in other industries.
Yeah, and we saw them run pipes up Mega Bay 2 when they were doing the top floors, where they'd pump from the bottom and pump it up to the to the office level to do the concrete flooring there. So it's definitely very doable.
Agreed.
All right. Final three questions in my queue are related to Starhopper. From Kal-El, Crane Man, and Smurf Trooper. All wondering, since Hoppy does have a triangular shape, legs, would that fit into the triangular shape opening at the office building?
I
Nice.
love it. I hope so. That'd be better than a booster to see Hoppy there. That would be awesome.
Awesome. So is that clear? Is it, Joe?
That clears my queue.
Well, we're on time, so I think we've covered everything. So we might start signing off. So I'll start with Todd. Really appreciate your comments and your time today, and hope you enjoyed the show.
Oh yeah, as always, I love these shows. I love helping you guys with the shows. It's just a lot of fun for me. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Mauricio, for getting these amazing pictures. Thank you guys all for coming. All the donations, all the gifts, everything is great. Goes towards future flights. Thank you all so much for being here. And don't forget to hit that like button on your way out.
Excellent. There's some really good points there, Todd. Yeah, we thank our community so much for the support we get. It's only that way that all this is possible. Lawrence.
I thank you as well, and thank the RGB team for this honor of always being allowed to be here. And I thank all of our YouTube and Patreon members for allowing the RGB team to keep bringing us these wonderful and awesome photos so we can really get into the insights of Starbase.
Agreed. We get an amazing view with these aerial photography. And yeah, personally as well, I think I mentioned just earlier, I feel very humbled and blessed to be part of this whole team as well. And I'll let Joe sign up and thank the rest of the people. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Yeah, appreciate your time. At that ridiculous hour there in Australia, we do appreciate you hosting these streams there, Steph. And thanks to you, Todd and Darth, for always joining us. We always love having you back. And thanks to the RGB team for getting these awesome photos. Emlyn for turning the knobs and pushing the buttons. Procky, everybody else in the back channels, making things run nice and smooth throughout the week, getting other episodes out, and everybody that runs everything in the backside. Thanks Astro Jen for scheduling the stream, my awesome lovely wife. And with that, we'll say most engines cut off, hot staging confirmed. Love you, bye.